The following is my conversation with Don Nottoli, 5th District Representative of Sacramento County's Board of Supervisors. He has been in public service for over 40 years, and it was a privilege to discuss local governance and his experience in politics. Don is truly someone who cares. First, thank you for giving me some of your time, Supervisor Nottoli, or Don.
Yes, thanks, Michael.
Definitely appreciate it. And I think one thing that, the main topic of our conversation is going to be governance and government. You've had an incredible, stellar career in public service. And one thing's for sure in public service is you don't get, it's a thankless job in a way. I mean, you do get thanks, but, a lot of once you're in the game, or once you're in the thought of becoming a person who's in politics, it's tough to switch off, right? Like, you kind of just like switch on. You're this person, and now you're in the public arena, which is super scary, and it's got a lot of pros and cons, but definitely you have to be kind of tiptoeing from that point on. And you've been doing it for, I don't know, 4 decades or maybe even longer.
It's been 4 decades plus, yes.
Yeah, and so maybe we could start with just kind of the beginnings of your being as a public servant, because I know you started even in high school. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, again, well, thank you, Michael, for inviting me to be part of your program here today. I'm pleased to join with you and certainly have an opportunity to share with you and your audience a bit just about certainly, as you mentioned, governance and government service and public service. And I've been very blessed in my life. I've had certainly good mentors and had folks all along both my personal life, but in my professional life, have had the opportunity to associate and come to know as friends and associates, a whole host of folks that again have left a strong impression on me. But I think just my interest certainly in government was student government, not unlike I'm sure a lot of folks in their respective careers, whether at high school or college level. But I certainly found, and still to this very day, find great satisfaction in working with people in an effort to try to find solutions, resolution, tackle a problem, and to be a part of hopefully finding a good outcome in whatever the particular issue, big or small. But local high school, was involved in student government, went on obviously my college years, probably not as engaged. I wasn't as engaged in student government at the college level because I chose to run for public office in the community from which I've spent my entire life, having been born and raised in community here in Sacramento County. But the ability to work with folks and to be able to, as I say, take an issue, whatever it might be, and whether it's within the framework of the school. I served on the school board for a number of years. A brief stint on the city council in the community from which I live, and then had the opportunity now I'm in my 43rd year with the county of Sacramento. So life goes quickly, and of course the past nearly 27 years now. I'm in my 27th year as a member of the Board of Supervisors here in Sacramento County, but I worked previously with my predecessor for 16 years. So, but all along the path, I think, as you said in your kind of setting the commentary here, I've seen it as public service. It's an opportunity, and certainly the engagement can be very fast-paced. It can be very challenging, but I think working with people from all walks of life, from various points of view, and finding in many cases common ground by which to establish a basis for either finding understanding, finding a solution, finding ways to address a variety of issues, and we can probably talk about those more as you get into the questions here this evening. But it's again, I would say to anyone who might be considering a career or opportunity in public service, there is the aspect of running and serving an elective office, but public service spans a much wider breadth of opportunities, and whether it's in healthcare or in law enforcement or in engineering, there's just so many facets of our lives are touched by those who serve in the public, and there are many honorable public servants, certainly an organization that I'm given the privilege of serving with. But throughout this state, throughout this county, throughout this nation, and I think that anyone who might be considering a career along those or a career change, I think in the times we live in, there's really some opportunities both in the public but certainly in the private sector. But I would encourage folks to take a look at it, and if they're students who are looking at their long-term plans, I would encourage folks. There's a myriad of opportunities to serve and to not only certainly receive the compensation that helps supports you in your life and your family, but also that satisfaction comes with being able to help people. And in my view, that's still what government should be about, is to serve people, to help people, and to do it in a way that hopefully we can be efficient use of our public tax dollars, but also we know that people are well served. So I'll just kind of leave it with that and let you.
So do you remember kind of growing up, like you said, you started even as a kid, really, teenager, right? Yeah. Like kind of like an aha moment or something that really inspired you, like, oh, maybe I'm kind of into that, and then you started doing it, and it's like, you know what, this is something that I can really thrive in.
I don't know about aha moment, but I think certainly in school, and I talked about mentors a moment ago, but certainly teachers and other adults and peers as well who influence you in different ways. And but I love studying history. I like the engagement with people, the interactions in the classroom.
Do you remember like your platform in high school, like what you promised people, like, hey, I'll make sure all the bathrooms are clean all the time?
Oh, I don't recall specifically, but it's certainly something along the lines. Obviously, bringing improvement to your school and supporting students in their different endeavors, and again, I served in student government all 4 years of high school, and to me it was being able to sit in the student council setting, obviously different than being on a city council or a school board or on the board of supervisors, but nonetheless, of having that exchange, appreciating different points of view, listening to different approaches, and then having the opportunity to, as a representative, and it goes to public service, but it also goes to representative government, and so I found that certainly to be challenging, intriguing, interesting, and I think just learning about civic activities and civic involvement, and some of them were certainly in my early years were more recreation oriented or certainly educational oriented on the school board, but nonetheless, recognizing you're serving a certain constituency, and whether it's young people or it's adults in the community or just your broad community as an elected member of a city council or a school board, and that there are the other thing is you come to understand very quickly that there's a wide variety of points of view. Some that are very strongly held. Also, that when it comes with the budgetary authority, that resources typically are in much greater demand than they are available. And so making choices and decisions and being a part of the decision-making process, and so it goes back to my certainly early years, probably my elementary school years, just being involved with folks, and then learning how you petition the principal or the or the superintendent or for some help on, I said petition in a positive way for some help in the school or getting some support for a particular program or an activity. And so all those things kind of, they kind of blend together as I think back. But certainly I knew I had an interest in it, and I've been blessed with a good energy level, and I find it challenging. And so, but again, no one gets here on their own. You have support all along the way. You have people who help you, guide you, influence you, and help you. I think grow and mature, in yourself, but also in your in your role in serving others. And I've been very, very blessed in that respect.
Early on, were there some things that you felt like, oh, maybe this is a skill or a trait that I need to improve? Maybe I'm not a natural at certain things. I know like public speaking is a huge just in the arena, right? I think people are so scared of public speaking that they'd rather go do something else. So were there things that you felt like I need to sharpen up on these certain things, and how do you do that?
Yeah, again, a good question, fair question. I think that as I was saying earlier, that teachers, coaches, other mentors in our lives, and so good advice along the way about communication, and I'm a big believer, always have been, that the ability to communicate, certainly verbally, but also in written form is really, really important. Another part of it, again, is to be a good listener, and to don't always be the one that's offering all the all the advice and weighing in. That there's a time for that exchange, and and to learn from others. I mean, in fact, I was on a phone conversation just before we started this discussion here this evening, and we were talking about how learning and the interest in in a particular topic or subject, or just generally it gives one purpose. It gives one time to hopefully reflect and to learn from one another. But yeah, I would just say that it's speaking in front of groups of people that you have to have some level of confidence that you can go out there and do it, that even if you know the subject matter, be able to deliver the talk. And so that's something I still work at. Even though I've been doing public speaking of sorts to different audiences now for as you said, well over 4 decades. It's something that I always I put thought into, and you try to be crisp in your delivery, and hopefully be empathetic in your comments and so forth. And and with the myriad and variety of topics you deal with, certainly in my current role, you're really not an expert in any of those things, and so you draw upon learning from others, and and hopefully being sincere in the way you convey that. I'm a big believer and always have been that if you don't know the answer, then you just say you don't know the answer. Don't make it up on the run, and that and there are opposing views, and some that are very strongly held, and that be respectful of that and that in a dialogue we may not persuade one another, but if we've listened intently, then we have an appreciation for that point of view. I also think it's important too, Michael, to your point, is that to reflect on matters that whether big or small, and that time to reflect, I think, becomes more precious. It was one thing that I've noticed just with all the daily demands in all of our lives. I mean, we live busy lives in the world that we live in, and that if you have that time to have a little bit of quiet time, and whether it's on the drive to work or it's at the end of the day, reflect on that, and try to stay well grounded, and also know that that as people that come from different perspectives, different walks of life, different life experiences, that you want to excel, but that there's going to be times when we're going to make mistakes. I make them just like everybody else. Hopefully you learn from those mistakes, and that they're not ones that are fatal in any way, and that you hopefully make yourself better, and that's kind of a motto, I think, that I try to apply, and that is to just do your best. Do your best every day, and that's all you can expect of yourself, and expect of others, and if we do that, and do it in a way that we're sincere about it, and and whether we've chosen public service or some other craft or trade or pursuit in life, that makes the world a very interesting place, and certainly can challenge us at times because of all the various moving parts that make up our society and our government structures and so forth. But at the end of the day, again, certainly we're blessed in many ways in our lives. We're challenged by the things that here in the in the 21st century that that are as I said, big and small. But nonetheless, that I subscribe to the belief that working together we can figure out approaches, and I say solutions, not always going to solve it in the immediacy, but that we can make things better, and that you make a difference. It kind of goes back to your point a moment ago. I'll just stop with this for this point. That I learned early on that in working together you could make a difference. And again, whatever that might be, you could look throughout a lifetime, and but you don't do that alone. You do it. Sometimes you're the leader, and you're given that leadership role either by choice or by some other method, but that you really can. You can make a positive difference, and that if we do that, then then we work together for the quality of life, and we work together to make this a good place for all of us, as a community, as a society, as a nation, as a world.
Yeah, and I think in particular with local government, right? The difference you guys make is visible to you every time you get out, right? On your way back home.
Right.
It's something that you see that the road got paved, the trash got picked up, all these little, basic but fundamental things that make everybody else's life function normally.
Yeah.
Right. If not, then you got people knocking on your door.
Yeah, you make a very good point. Well, it is, and I think to your point about local government, where it's very tangible in the sense that some of the direct services that are part of what counties and cities do and special districts is that some of the things you just named off is that maintaining our streets, overseeing the utilities, the water, sewer, and garbage that again. As long as they function well, then people may want to tell you about how you could do it better or that it costs too much. But if it doesn't work, to your point, that it can mess things up pretty pretty fast for an individual or a family or a business or whatever. But yeah, so local government is again there are so many services and programs that are delivered at the local level, and again, using our tax dollars as through the federal and state systems that funnel down through counties, and cities have a role, certainly a very important one, but counties, in addition to some of the municipal services that you mentioned, social services, human services, health and mental health, certainly your law and justice systems, your systems for those who would be at risk, whether it's children or disadvantaged folks, seniors. So there's just a wide range of things that counties are involved in, but that is part of the satisfaction is that if somebody calls or if we're deliberating a certain program that sometimes there's going to there's going to be a benefit to folks, but you also get a chance oftentimes to encounter someone's does reach out to your point about thank you and appreciation. I would just say that there's some very gracious people in this world who again when they get help or assistance, sometimes more than they expected and sometimes less than they would have hoped, but you certainly reach out and and express thanks and appreciation. And again, I share that with a lot of folks because again, this is an organization is that it's not me directly. I have a role and take it seriously, where you can help facilitate those things. But there's in Sacramento County, for example, we've got over 12,000 employees that every day deliver those services and they make sure that potholes get repaired, and that the utility services function properly. When they don't, they troubleshoot the issue. They also, as social workers and health workers and folks that are involved in a variety of services that are lifeline for people. You do that every day, and then you talk about some of the other things that are kind of obscure to some folks, but everything from not obscure in the sense that they're not important, but people just they take for granted, and and whether it's the operation of our airport system in this county, it's big, but the county oversees that, and we do everything from agricultural consultation for folks through our agricultural commissioner to our weights and measures, to ensure that people get what they're purchasing when they go to the store by certifying the gas pumps and the scales in the stores and so forth, and things that again benefit people of all ages, and helping folks who are struggling with without housing and with severe medical needs, and also public safety. And when you think about that, the men and women who service in different capacities, and the law and justice system, and I think about libraries and parks and open space areas, and I could go on for hours here and won't, but I just want to say that there is a lot to be said for local government, for the role that it plays, either directly or indirectly in the lives of people, and again, you as a supervisor, but certainly as a resident of this county or any county, you can look around, and that stuff just doesn't happen by itself. Somebody gets it done, and it's not it's not me, but it's an organization. And I think that lastly, I would just say that because budgets can run the up and down, the roller coaster at times, but maintaining and sustaining aspects of the system that make sure that people get essential services, but hopefully things that benefit them and their families and their lives and their pursuits in this community.
Okay, I think this camera turned off. Let me just make sure.
You bet.
It runs again, because this is the important one for you. Okay. If it beeps again, don't stop it.
No problem. Yeah, good. Well, just interrupt me anytime.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think you made a very good point. Even I'm guilty of it, just because it's not really, it's not what's on cable news, right? Like local government gets overlooked because it's not as exciting. It's not what really tears people apart. So, generating ad revenues and stuff, it's not really great for that. And it's really the organization that you interact with on a daily basis, right? Like most normal folks kind of just don't really think about it too much, and I think that's a testament to how well the structure was created. I think like one of my ambitions in the future would be like a time when you don't really know the personalities in government anymore, but you just know that it's working, that the ideas really are the ones that are leading the way forward versus people and personalities. I think it's so easy to kind of get caught up in terms of like, oh, I like this person, So for example, like last election, I had my horse and other people would have their horse in the race, and we would make bets. Like I made a bet with my brother. I totally lost. I think he collected twice or something. But then again, the terms are limited, right? It gets you really excited because it's a very personal thing. You can attribute all your hope towards one person. I mean, look at Obama, right? Like hope. He kind of just like, that's my thing. But even after, whether you liked him or not, after 8 years, he's not there anymore. Right. And so tying everything to personalities, I think it's not really the move forward. I would like to get into a world or create a, if we could move towards a system where it's like, hey, it's the platforms, right? It's the overall vision that we want to get to way past after all these people are here. I mean, you're about to retire, right?
Right.
So it's something that, like, hey, after Don's gone, are the ideas that that he kind of put forward, the ideas, did they get to stay, right? Or what happened to those things? Is it going to be a completely different type of leadership? I think that's why we have parties, right? And that's actually one of my personal kind of curiosities, is that as a politician for quite a while, and somebody who belongs in a party, how does that work in terms of the overall vision that the party has? Of course, they have to have kind of like a vision, I would say, for the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then how does that translate to the different parts of this ginormous nation?
Yeah, well, certainly a number of things embedded in what you just were kind of asking about, Michael. But I would say that for me, and I think, again, the perspective of local government here, as elsewhere in California, the offices are nonpartisan, at least on the ballot. Obviously, people have philosophies and or parties that they affiliate or associate with, but my approach has been, and I think it's I've seen it with other colleagues too, is that when you come to local government, city or county level, yes, there may be you're obviously influenced by your experiences, by the makeup of the district, and their and the folks that you represent, again, as representative government. But I think to your point about platforms or your positions, that when you seek public office, people want to know what your views are, as they should. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? What would be your position on this? And certainly, having had the good fortune of serving the number of years I have, obviously I think people have a pretty good understanding on a number of issues of what my position might be. But one of the things that I think, to your point about what happens in the future, and again, offices aren't for life. I've been, again, given the good fortune of serving, but when I conclude this term, 28 years on the Board of Supervisors, which is a fairly substantial amount of time, and there aren't term limits at the county level, at least in this county. But I think my point being is that the organization is a strong one and solid. If you have good, solid leadership below the elected, and you have in your public policy development have given good direction relative to delivery of services, to programmatic priorities for not just budgeting, but for across the spectrum of how you would invest and reinvest in the community, and whether it's economic development or it's in infrastructure or in social services, law and justice. You look at that annually in the budget priorities. But I think if you have a good, strong structure, certainly some of that's preceded me. I mean, some of this goes back to when this county was chartered, and how counties were formed to begin with, and basically to serve the public health and welfare and of the citizenry. And of course now it's evolved into just such a variety of programs and services, and many of them obviously delegated through state and federal funding streams and statutes. But I think to your point that if you have a good solid working relationship, that not that folks that certainly have preceded me or succeed me, not just in seat I hold, but as board members, people will bring their personality, their sense of priorities based upon the times and the issues of the day. But if you kind of have steady approach to it, recognizing the essentials of why counties were established, and to talk specifically counties, and trying to meet the needs of obviously here we've grown significantly. When I started with the county of Sacramento, we were probably just right around 700,000 people. Well, now we're double that. So obviously that's what's happened over 40 plus years. But trying to address those ongoing issues, but have an approach that is sustainable. And I say that because that way, you've laid a platform both budgetarily, but from a policy framework and service delivery that will guide. And it doesn't mean that somebody else coming into the seat won't again impact that, bring their own views as a representative and serve to change that going forward. But I think it's kind of that steadiness and to have some vision to the future. And I think some of the issues of the day are ones that will have much longer timelines and tails to them. I mean, we talk about climate change and some of the impacts we're seeing in places in California right now with the tragedy of fires and obviously other changes that are are very real. So policies that we would enact, whether I was here or somebody else, that impact going to the future, certain benchmarks that we would then guide both funding priorities, but also our actions by. And so I think that with each person, we all have our own personalities. You bring that to bear, but in being district representatives, but also representing the people of this county, with the mind of working together. And here's how I would kind of knit this back together: is that my view, there's a lot of common ground for what people would want for our community. There are different approaches to it. There's different things that people would tackle first or make the highest priority. But I think people generally, I've said this many times over the years, is that people generally want the same thing. They want a good quality of life. They want a safe place for them and their families, their children, a place to have opportunities to get a good education, to if they're oriented to business, to have an opportunity for business, to make a home, to enjoy recreational opportunities. And counties touch a lot of those respective areas, and so if we stay focused on that, recognizing that you may change the priority order over time, and that whatever the issue of the day, and whether it's the pandemic, the effects of the pandemic, or it's climate change, those are issues. They're not just focused in Sacramento County, isolated us. They're global in many respects. But there are things we can do here to affect the lives and the quality of life, and if we do that, with an eye on making a difference, in a positive way, and working together, you can achieve a lot of good outcomes. And that's been my experience. I mean, again, I say whether big or little, there are things we can each do in our daily lives and our daily work, and if you work at that, you'd be amazed. And you look back, and I look back over 40 years, and it's amazing to me, some of the things that this community has achieved, and and the potential for it, because there's a lot of like yourself, young men and women who are aspiring to do good things, to get their information out, to to bring people together, and that's those are the kernels of where your genesis of how you take ideas and thoughts and energy and channel them to some good outcomes.
All right. Yeah. No, I think you're definitely right in that. It doesn't just take the people who are, elected to do these things and to help and to think and to work. It takes the organization and then the rest of the community. Right.
You're right.
And so that there's that cycle of the community, elects you, gives their trust and mandate to you, and then you have a whole organization that is established, a structure, full of professionals, and that will help your vision, the collective vision, to move forward.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, you got a good sense of it. In fact, you said it very well. So
Yeah.
And and it will evolve over time. I mean, and that's okay. I think that you work off of a foundation and you add to, you subtract, you modify.
Exactly.
Yeah, I use that as an analogy, but I just tell you that this world's full of very talented, very resourceful, creative people, and that in my view, that again it kind of goes back to public service. Is that in the public realm that given this opportunity to serve with others, to serve others, and to be of service to people. And again, I throughout my lifetime anyway, professional career, it's been a tremendous honor, and it's a privilege. There's a lot of responsibility goes with it, but I knew that going in, and there's some things that are unpredictable, and that's just that makes it interesting too. So
one thing I'm personally really impressed and I go wow, is you have a clean record in public service. You don't have any scandals. It doesn't seem because for example, for me, I'm a normal person. You put me in a position where I have some control, and I might tweak things a little bit, and pretty soon I'm on the newspaper, and it's how do you manage that? Is that something that was kind of baked in throughout your early years, your mentorship, and how did you develop a structure in your in yourself that gives you the parameters of how you operate as a public servant?
Well, and thank you for the compliment. I again, like everybody else, I make mistakes too, and but I would just say that I think having a strong or having a moral compass, and I certainly attribute that to my parents and others that instilling you the ability to look at issues and do and maybe not as stark as right and wrong, but to know the difference. And I think it goes back to what I was saying though, to treating people as you would want to be treated, and to be respectful, and to be trustworthy, and and be good to your word. I'm not shy about it. I mean, I have a strong faith, and I believe that for as hard as we work every day in our own lives, make things better, that there's other influences in this world, and some that are otherworldly, but I rely on that, and at times, because again, you do what you can do in a day, and know you might be making a difference, but that there's have the the strength and the and the perseverance to go forward. Sometimes that can be daunting to any of us, but no, I think that again, as you learn, but to be kind, trustworthy, and I'm not describing all these things for myself. I just think that those are things that you want to aspire to, and that certainly in public service, you're given the opportunity. People do, as you said it, they entrust you with making decisions as their representative to, and to do your best. And I guess I would just say that's what I've attempted to do, and to find satisfaction and certainly enjoyment in what you do, and to listen to others, as I said earlier, that you don't come with all the patent on all the answers. Is that there are good ideas, good suggestions, and then there's a juncture in public service, so certainly as elected, where you have to make decisions. And sometimes you really you really wrestle with decisions. I know I have that. Where that you've got all the input, the facts are before you, and you've listened to folks who see it one way or the other on that issue, and you've got the expert advice. And then it's back to you and your colleagues to make a decision, and it's not always black and white by any means,
So how do you have a process? And because I know for sure there's certain decisions especially for politicians that, the base might not agree with, like the people that voted for you, might not agree with, right? But, from your perspective, in your heart of hearts, you think it's a decision that needs to be made for, the benefit of everybody towards the future. So how do you wrestle with that, or in your experience, how did you end up doing it?
You do. You said a good descriptor. You wrestle with it because again, it may not be clear at the outset, and where again, as I described a moment ago, where you've heard the logical aspects of it, and you've thought about it, and there are things that tear at your heartstrings, to use another analogy, and then there's sometimes when you kind of got to gut it out because it's like, there are certain constituencies, folks that and respect, but they come at it from a different point of view. And as I said, I think the one thing that I've tried to keep in mind too is that you need to be able to explain to folks how you arrived at a decision. They may adamantly disagree. They may, be very upset, and or they may be, very happy about the outcome. But you need to be able to explain, and then you need to, to keep moving on. I mean, not that you forget, not that you can't even at times revisit, certain decisions that were made, in on elected bodies, or you have taken a position on, you being me. But I think that that's part of the growth in over time, that you take your life experiences, your knowledge, you do your homework. I'm a big believer in that. I'll just say that there's a lot of material out there that needs to be absorbed, and I'm you do your reading, you do your preparation, you talk to people. I do my best to, again, in this day and age, when you get multiple emails, phone calls, but you take all that into account, and then ultimately it comes back to the way you started your question, is that it's for you and your colleagues in a deliberative setting. But that's too, because again, I talk about hearing from, but your four colleagues on the board of supervisors who are equal in their voting capacity, but also they bring their experiences, their knowledge, their take on things, and then you talk it out, you work it out, and then ultimately, in many cases, you vote on it, and sometimes all five of you agree, and sometimes four agree and one doesn't, and sometimes it's a 3-2, but I think that's part of how you arrive at decisions, and I do recognize though that decisions, and certainly the gravity of certain decisions that do affect very directly people's lives and their ability to thrive and maybe even survive in some cases, and those are very weighty decisions, and ones that might be easier to arrive at than some other ones, because you just my head's telling me that this is the right thing to do, and if people disagree with me about priorities and so forth, then so be it, and so I've come to accept that, but over time, I say this, and I've heard others say it, that if you look back on your career, certainly in public service, and it looks pretty level, there's been highs and there's been lows, and there's been some tough decisions, and there's been some battles, but in the overall, if you can look back and it looks pretty level, then I think take some satisfaction or console in knowing that then it was when it was really tough, it was tough, and when it was things were going pretty good, it was good, but overall it's pretty steady. And it goes back to your earlier question too about kind of for the future, you have a steady platform from which to operate, and I don't want to be repetitive here, but I just think that you do your best at it, and and you learn along the way. You learn from others, and I've learned so much from my interaction with people I've served with, people that I've served, and we're in this community together, and that's
So it sounds like you're not even ready to retire. Like honestly, you have stellar history. You are a genuinely good person. You're tall. You're pretty good looking. My next question is, if I were in your position and I got to a point where, hey, I've kind of progressed. Now I'm in this spot where you're doing really well. Yeah. So my question is like, how come you didn't try to pursue the other levels of government? I don't want to say it's the higher whatever, but I think someone like you would definitely, more people would potentially generally benefit from somebody like you moving up, for the lack of a better word, right?
No, I appreciate it. Well, in fair question, good question. You would
definitely win. I mean, if you ran for Congress, right?
I don't know anything about
I'm
that.
not saying, okay. Yeah. That's from my. I'm biased. I'm biased, but you have a pretty decent chance.
Yeah. Well, again, I think it's kind of within yourself, finding a place where, and maybe this is an ongoing search, and certainly you can. You want good people to represent. We all want good people to represent us at all levels of government, and certainly within government service, you want dedicated public servants and people who are committed to getting the job done. But I didn't aspire to other office. I mean, to me, having had the chance, and maybe it goes back to the fact that I had the chance for 16 years to serve in a support capacity for my predecessor, Toby Johnson, on the board. Again, a wonderful friend and mentor, and I think became not just familiar, but with got a chance to develop working relationships and to find the ability, certainly in working side by side with him, saw what the policy level involved, but also that direct connection with people, which again to me, I guess maybe was where I found my place in my professional life. And again, it's not just about the comfort level, but knowing that you could make that difference in the communities that you represent, but in the county as a whole, and and having a chance to work with just such a large number of dedicated people throughout my career that so again, I just and I think when it comes to legislative leadership, there's a lot of policy development as you move to a state or federal level, and again, you want good folks there in Washington D.C. and certainly in Sacramento. But again, it didn't appeal to me.
The capital is just right here. I was thinking maybe DC's not a place for you. You don't want to live in DC. I mean, I think right now they're working from home anyway. So that's not a matter anymore.
It didn't call.
Well,
out
the legislature is like a skip and a hop.
Yeah, it didn't call out to me. Didn't appeal to me. And again, I valued my ability to work with legislative leaders over the years. Many of them very dedicated to their work in that realm. But here again, I just the things you deal with, and whether it's water or land use or human services, infrastructure, it's all there. I mean, it's and I find it fascinating. I find it challenging. Again, my takeaway is that in ways that maybe just I'm a small contributor, but you can work with folks and you can advance important programs. And again, so in people saw fit over the course of several election cycles to have me continue as a representative, and it's been a really good run. And I just again I appreciate your kind comments, and over time, others have encouraged me, and
I'm not the first. Of course, I'm not the first, right?
But it just again, I think it's kind of not that you always know, but having some level of confidence that where you're at's the place that you can best serve people. And again, I've seen it as a career of public service, and again, done my best, and I'm sure along the way, folks have seen it differently and would have preferred to have somebody else represent them. But all that being said, that that again, having served and worked with the County of Sacramento for more than 4 decades has been a tremendous honor, and I couldn't have asked for any more from a career standpoint to be able to be engaged and be involved, and to be able to work each day and trying to assist folks in this community, and to see some of that actually come about during my career.
Yeah, like you said earlier, I think with the county role, you get a little bit of kind of everything.
You do. It's such a potpourri of things, and in any given day, I mean, there's some things that are kind of predictable, and you're gonna meet and such, but there are other things that nothing comes to mind exactly right now, but it really is, and so it's been very gratifying and just a tremendous honor, and I still got some more months here, so I'm still looking forward.
So are there certain things that you're like, okay, I would really need, I want to try to accomplish these things. So, you still have a good year or so,
year and a half, about 16 months. So, well, that's the other thing that as each day passes, it becomes even more apparent that. And I've thought about this even before I decided, that I wasn't going to seek re-election next year. That, when you come into this position and are elected, there's a lot of things that are undone, and that you aspire to help facilitate getting done and to work on and so forth. And you're able to again in this cooperative approach, a collaborative approach, to see a lot of those things come to fruition. And the reverse of that is that I know when I leave office, there'll be a lot of things that are not yet complete that you may have helped be a part of to initiate or whatever, but that they just aren't going to get done. It's just the cycle of things. And you alluded to in your comments earlier about your question earlier about kind of the vision. So some of those things are set in motion, and I have every bit of confidence to believe that my colleagues in this county will we'll see them through, and that someday they'll be complete. But it's becoming very apparent to me that the time gets shorter, and that I'll have another round of of county budget before I leave office, and to get see some projects complete and so forth. But I look back and think about some of the the work that was done when they closed the military bases. And Mather's been we're 25 years plus post closure, but I look at that ongoing work out there, and the jobs that have been created and the investments that have been made, both public and private sector, and there's a lot of potential. But that's not going to be, it won't even be close to being realized while I'm in office, and I recognize that. But seeing some of our changes in our law and justice system, and some of our work, particularly with the Recovery Act money that'll be coming to counties and city and to the state, to hopefully see be a part of at least the guidance in the early stages of getting that invested in our reinvested in our communities, and hopefully help with some of the economic recovery, but also recognize some of the essential work that went on, and do people perform that. And there's some opportunities to invest in infrastructure and water and water quality projects and broadband. And so there's a lot of exciting things. That's the other thing I would just say. There's a lot of exciting opportunities. And I recognize that, some of them will, be completed, because some things have a cycle that's much shorter. Others, you just plant the seed and you keep nurturing it along. And so it'll be for others to, see it to completion. But, I'm cognizant of it, and I just know that there's the clock will run out, and the time is up, and it was by my choice, and certainly not one that I took lightly when but I gotta say that after 28 years as supervisor and 44 with the county upon completion of my term. That's a good long run, and it's and now it's an opportunity for others who aspire to serve in the capacity of supervisors. Time is allow them opportunity, Michael, and I would say lastly I would just say that I have confidence in the people and certainly the voters of not just the district I represent but the county, that they'll find representatives who will fit their expectations about things that they want to see done at the county level, who they want to represent them, and that chemistry will be reflected in the board makeup, and that this county be well served by succeeding supervisors and generations to come. I have no question. I mean, as I said, somebody preceded me and somebody's going to succeed me, and I was given the good fortune of serving in that office that the public puts their faith and trust in for a extended period of time. And 28 years is pretty good run as supervisor.
Yeah, and what's unique with your career is that you were essentially already involved in helping the county,
yep.
right, with Toby,
right,
and so you had, it's more common like in Japan where you're the what do you call this? You have a master and you're the apprentice for so long, for a decade or so. Like even when the sushi masters, the sushi chefs, and you kind of had that experience. You had somebody who really took you under their wing and showed you.
That's a good analogy you just said, where you had as I said, mentor early on, but to study under, to work with, to learn from, and to that you were able to assist that person, but you also me being in this case that to be able to benefit by that. So that was a tremendous opportunity.
Yeah, and so on your first term, I'm sure you already had like a wealth of experience that other like for example somebody who's going to be next after you wouldn't have the benefit of.
Right.
So after all these years, are there things like, so let's pretend that tomorrow is going to be your first day as a supervisor. What are some of the things that you yourself is going to give as an advice?
So you're saying if it'd be my first day as supervisor coming in, and well, I think one, get if you aren't already, to your point about the advantage I had in knowing the organization and people that were the go-to folks in the organization, and so if one didn't know the organization, get to know the organization, and I mean not just the structure of who reports to who, but
not just the closest bathroom.
Yeah, no, that's important too. But you're right. And because it's one thing to know your district and to understand the budgetary aspects and the policy aspects of an organization and what you want to bring to it. But I think to get to know the folks and and certainly those people you most directly interface with your executive officer and the administrative and management team, but also just the physical layout, not just of the county, but knowing where services are delivered, and then over time, you're not going to do this just on the first day, but get acquainted with the people who are going to be reporting to the board, that are going to be responsible for large departments, for carrying out program delivery, and I think that will serve both the new supervisor, but serve your constituency well. Also, just I think and people have generally have a knack for this. I mean, that's how they get elected, is that they are able to I think bring people together and so forth. But that you're one of 5 members of the board, and in this case, and that you build those relationships, certainly of mutual respect and of understanding. And even if your times you're going to disagree strongly, maybe adamantly on a particular issue, but that you're going to spend lots of hours working, with your fellow board members and then the other boards that you're seated on as well, and that coming to the idea of that you that you want to advance some ideas, and maybe depending upon which where your levels of interest lie, but develop a good working rapport. And again, it goes without saying, I think that be respectful and maintain that aspect as we talked about earlier, that every day is going to be a learning experience, and you're going to be able to help others learn through some of your actions and example. And and as you lead by example, and that leadership is you can characterize in lots of different ways, but I think you lead by example about how you carry yourself out there, and you're fulfilling your responsibilities, and that I've said this kind of in the context that the office obviously is there. It's a trusted position that goes with this county when it was established 160, almost 170 years ago, but that recognize that position is one of certainly of honor and respect and authority, and that you take that seriously, and just do, again, I bring it right back to what I said several times this evening: do your best, and get out there and and put your energy and take those ideas and those that energy and channel it, and you'll find your question was your first day as supervisor, you'll find a very rewarding and satisfying opportunity to serve.
Yeah, I think the dynamics of the five is kind of similar to the Supreme Court, and I think the Supreme Court is a great example of people who battle with their ideas, mm-hmm. but have utmost respect with each other, and and you don't see the conflict. You see the discussion. You see the maybe the debate. The perspectives.
Maybe a ruling that has a split. But again,
you see the perspectives. But
yes,
it's professional. Mm-hmm. It's admirable. Like the way they hash things out and come out with ultimately a decision or an opinion. And
yet, and I think just again kind of just highlight on a point neglected to talk about earlier, and I think it is that you do represent people from all walks of life, and with whatever their stature in the community or standing in the community, that again the precious resources, the taxes and revenues that come through that go towards the service delivery to employ a lot of folks to deploy a lot of folks to do that. But to keep that in mind, that that when you're in your decision making and your daily pursuits and interactions with people, that it's not just the folks that you see on any given day or hear from on any given day. They will obviously have impact on your thinking and potentially on your decision making, or maybe on your decision making. But a lot of folks that you don't hear from, who, and you referenced earlier, who place their faith and trust in you as a representative, and even if they didn't participate, didn't vote, maybe didn't support you, whatever, you still represent all of those folks, and again of all ages, and from communities and neighborhoods throughout this entire county. And if you kind of keep that in the back of your mind, then that will lend itself to inform you as you're making decisions, not just in the budgetary context, but also from a policy standpoint, and be available and accessible. Everybody may have a different way of doing this, but in my view, that's part of the fun and enjoyment is to engage with people, to get a chance to know folks, and to, and to hear from folks. And sometimes, they're very blunt about, how they view things, and about, people are skeptical about government and government's ability to, do things efficiently and effectively, and yet I'm a big believer that that in your role as supervisor, but certainly all of us working together in public service can strive to do better, to be good at what we do, and to again hopefully have a positive impact on whatever we happens to be the item that we're dealing with, or the program responsibility we have. So it's it's always a ongoing work in progress, but it's again, I would recommend it to anyone who's considering, a career opportunity or ability to serve. That, and you can do it in ways. You can volunteer. I mean, we have a lot of folks who come back and volunteer to help out in certain program areas and continue to give back in lots of different ways. So anyway.
Yeah. Do you think our current do you think the people generally right now trust local government in general more, or how, like, based on your experience, and how are things different? I'm sure right now it's completely different, right? I mean, the pandemic and all these, things that are, everybody's lives are affected. So we might be generally in just a moment, but over like the, even before the pandemic, over the last maybe 5 years or so, how do you feel like the public, at least here in Sacramento, kind of how has it been?
Yeah, well, again, you prefaced the question very well. That I certainly the times that are probably extraordinary in some of the challenges they presented to each of us in our respective lives, but in community life and with the pandemic, and obviously the health impacts and the impacts to people's daily pursuits and schools and businesses, and just the conduct of activities that heretofore before the pandemic kind of took for granted. That that was just the way people congregated and came together and assembled, and everything from the church congregations to schools to just a whole host of activities. And then, obviously the economic and, and real impacts, personal impacts to folks that had lost loved ones and had people with very, very severe illnesses, and some who, been very, very slow to recover, even though they may have, lived through it, so to speak. So I think that from a local government standpoint, that, folks are, hold, it's maybe even a healthy skepticism about government's ability to, get things done and so forth. But I don't know. There was, obviously last year we went through, in addition to the pandemic, the civil unrest we saw, which highlighted some of the disparities in some of the way government conducts itself, not just from law and justice, but also in delivery of services, and even with the vaccination rates, where as we look at those on a frequent basis to see how we're doing, we see neighborhoods that are underserved or maybe historically been underserved, unserved, and makes, I think, rightfully so, to question about how we've met the needs of a variety of people in our community, not just in here and now, but certainly over the generations. And so I think we need to learn from that, and to where we can make the adjustments that let us do better immediately, but also over time, think about it, reflect on it, deliberate it in various settings, and then hopefully make the adjustments that see us go in a path that will do better in the future. And that's been a call. I mean, where people say they call into our meetings and say do better. The expectation is you do better, and offer their thinking about particular aspect of what we were talking about, and how we can. And yeah, there's a lot of anxiety out there about are we, with this latest surge we've seen, certainly throughout the different geographical regions of the nation, and so that leaves the uncertainty, the concern. People who've struggled in their own businesses and their own settings. I mean, people that were already housing fragile have certainly there's been in place, as you're well aware, Michael, some moratoriums on evictions and so forth, but a lot of uncertainty about what happens when some of those measures expire. So I would say that your basic question about how are we viewed, I think that I think people know they can reach out to the county to seek help or assistance, or ask us to take certain actions and so forth. And so I think we're accessible to that degree. And I know that we work really hard, and we got some work ahead of us in the very immediate future as it relates to American Rescue Act, American Rescue Plan money, and as I said, how we look to put that back into our community and in a way that hopefully impacts people positively in their lives. And I said this at one of our meetings here recently, that that's probably a once in a lifetime opportunity that you would see that amount of money, again recognizing all the duress and impacts that we've had over the last 16 months or so, but to have that to at least from a monetary standpoint, to look at how we can in the area of health and public health, mental health, and housing, and hopefully economic investment, make some investments that really do help us get better and build back. But I think government just in generally, kind of is going to be challenged by some of what you described. The back and forth that goes on in the political debate. Whether it's in Washington D.C. or in state or here locally in our communities, and for some folks that's just they don't want to have anything to do with it. It's like but yet I would encourage people to continue to participate, and certainly civically to vote and get engaged as they feel the need to, but that people can make a difference in the lives of others, and it's not just through their electives, but through their actions at the ballot box and so forth, and through their other civic involvement. So at any rate, we're still in kind of uncertain times, but there's some reasons, very good, strong reasons to be hopeful for how we're going to come out of this at the end, end of the day, and so I remain hopeful, and I'm optimistic, and again, through a lot of things we've talked about here this evening, I think there's processes and there's approaches that will allow us to make some adjustments, and to have young people like yourself be invigorated about what lies ahead and your own careers and pursuits, and but for others to be confident that we're going to see some return to normalcy, and we'll have learned through this, and hopefully never in our lifetime again have anything like this from a health perspective, from an impact, societal impact viewpoint as well, and be better and stronger at the end of the day, recognizing that people have lost their lives, that we've had a lot of sad situations that have occurred of circumstances, but that we can hopefully come out stronger, and with a commitment to keep building back, and to evolve in a way that we can see this see the positives.
I think that's generally one of the challenges of government is government's quite a reactionary organization, reacts to problems. And it's very tough to be, for especially government, to be a proactive organization, because one, you have the public involved, right? So the public has to see the problem before you can act on it, but there are also cases where you can predict the problem before it even gets there, and then mitigate it so that it doesn't get as bad. I think with from my personal perspective, I moved here with my family back in 2003 as a 15-year-old, and I can tell you, downtown wasn't as established. We didn't have the fancy arena, but at the same time, we also didn't have as much homelessness. So in a way, we kind of have like a tale of two cities going on, and I'm sure it's not unique to Sacramento. I'm sure it's happening in, I was just in LA or San Francisco. It's happening in kind of everywhere. And unfortunately, when we have, massive challenges like the pandemic, it is those people who are just right at the border that have all these things crashing down at the same time. And it's not just a health thing, it's it's also a health and a mental thing, financial, Yeah, and so it becomes a culmination of all these things, and then now the government again is playing catch up to address those negative effects that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think that to your point, that oftentimes we're trying to address problems that may or may not been able to have been foreseen, but and I think you mentioned one that is certainly the challenge of communities throughout the state and and certainly elsewhere throughout the nation, homelessness and folks who are unhoused and may have a variety of challenges that have found them in that circumstance, but having the ability to as a community, certainly using the public resources, but also with a lot of private partners to find ways to help people overcome not just homelessness, but other issues that may be bringing them down. But to your point, it's very apparent, it's very visible, and the pandemic, I think, has contributed to certainly to that as well. And how we invest and certainly prioritize kind of getting back to a situation where we can find some good results for having people move from the streets or from living in their cars to hopefully stable housing, and if there are other challenges, whether it's mental illness or addiction or PTSD or just a variety of things that contribute to folks' homelessness, to help them cope with those as well. And and again, children and families are affected. We're all affected in one way or the other, and so. But you're right. It's not just Sacramento or this region. It's you can look up and down the state and up and down certainly the West Coast. We're some more moderate climates. It's at proportions I don't think that you could even imagine 5 or 10 years ago. And we got a lot of work ahead of us. And but I'm confident that if we keep steer the course and be able to adjust to certainly a growing number, but some of the issues that are in one way or the other related to people's situations that can break the cycle, but also help people in the in the immediate term. And some of that's having additional housing, but also some support services. And counties are very involved in that. Again, goes back to not only administering the money, but hopefully programmatically. And it's not just with county employees, but with a lot of organizations, nonprofits and faith-based organizations that are going to be working side by side and are already out in the trenches. So.
Yeah, and like I said too, it's just we have all these issues that have come up, but at the same time we have the highest levels of growth in our economy.
All the potential for jobs for people of any age, but now with both retirements, but people making choices about their careers and so forth, and then just the economy, is seeing tremendous signs of at least in some sectors where people are just looking diligently for almost desperately to get folks that would fill those open employment slots. So there's, I think, a lot of opportunity.
No, I think in general, looking forward, America is actually in a really good position. It's obviously the ability of America to weather a lot of shakeup in global economy is the highest, right? And I think it's a good opportunity for the country and for people out there to have a really thriving life after we get the pandemic more handled and sorted out.
Yeah, no, I think that, again, as I said earlier, there's a lot of potential there, and in dealing with some of the longer term issues that we're looking at the here and now. I mean, as I said, climate change and some of the policy effects of how we can deal with that, homelessness, public health, and a variety of other issues. But there's many reasons to be hopeful and look to the future. It really is.
Yeah. So, looking into the future, okay.
Yeah.
You're retired. What's next? What are you going to be doing? I mean, I don't even know what kind of transition it's going to be. I'm sure it's not going to be, I don't know. Because my dad retired after a long career in the military, and I think personally he had a difficult time transitioning. How are you kind of envisioning your transition, and how does your transition look like?
Yeah, well, obviously something that got to prepare for because it's real, and certainly thought a lot about it, and to the degree that, as I said earlier, that I know that the weeks and months will pass quickly, and for as long as I've been given the opportunity to do this, that the time compared against the time that's left, it's very short. But I certainly see the opportunity again to certainly spend some more time with my immediate family. I've been very blessed. I have a wife who's been very supportive, but nonetheless, for the commitment that goes with the time commitment with this job, that has put up with a lot of me gone anyway from home. But it's all been local. That's the other thing too, is that it's been it hasn't been a lot of travel involved. Maybe certainly in county, and so I do see the potential. Maybe getting a few weeks or months to kind of catch my breath, so to speak. I'm gonna look very hard, and I'm sure I'll find the ability for purpose. And whether it's volunteering or helping out in different ways. I've had, since I've announced a few months ago that I wasn't seeking re-election, I've already been approached by folks who would, again, as flattering as it is and humbling as it is, we'll sign you up for this or that, or we'd love to have you be a part of our organization. I know they're sincere about it, and I've told them the number that I would consider it, but I think I'll just, again, it'll be a different pace, Michael, but one that I think I'll be able to, adjust to. There'll be certain aspects of this daily work that I will miss. The ability to engage with people, any given day with, multiples of dozens of people, and sometimes, not just in public hearings, but in meetings, spending time like we are here today, just talking about, my career, but what it means to work in the, in the public sector, public service. So I will miss some of that daily engagement. There's no doubt about it. In all honesty. On the other hand, I think I know there's plenty of ways I can give back, and this career that I've had has been one that's been very rewarding, and hopefully I can still have an element of contributing, but it'll be in a different way. It won't be in this decision-making role, which I've been given the privilege of serving. So I recognize that, and that will be different. But I have a lot of confidence that the transition will be, probably, there'll be certain things I couldn't have anticipated, but there'll be opportunities, and from people I've talked to who've retired or changed careers, or that they say that they're busier than they were before they retired. So we'll see, but no, I'm encouraged, and with what I think will be. It's certainly a number of years to give back in a different way than beyond what I've done certainly during my professional career. So I'm not looking at it in any fashion that I'm so worried about it, and I'll be busy right up until the final days in office, and then boom, it'll be you do something different. So
I know you love cars. You have a bunch of cars that you can restore, work on.
Oh yeah.
I feel like Jay Leno is gonna have competition once you retire.
No, nothing of the sort. But there are pursuits. Things that working around, my home and certainly things that you can do that whether it's turning a wrench, and I'm not very good at that, but.
You were telling me you were rebuilding a carburetor last time I was at your place.
I was going to put one on, I think. So it was already rebuilt. But there are things, to your point. I mean, reading, and spending time with family and pursuits that and whether it's working on an old car or restoring an old chair or something like that. There's ways to kind of bring to life or breathe some new life into something that's inanimate, obviously, but and then but also still keep connection with people. And so I'm not looking forward to it in any way that concerns me that somehow I'm going to be left in this big deficit all this time, nothing to do. I'm sure I'll be able to do it in a way that's still fulfilling and satisfying. And I'll be watching your career. Maybe I'll get more computer literate. I get on there and can watch your telecast and broadcast. But again, I really enjoy people, so I certainly tend to stay engaged in ways that may be different than now, but maybe similar in a lot of respects too.
Yeah. So you mentioned your relationships with people, and so one special relationship you have is with my amazing stepdad. And so you guys have been friends since...
Yeah. Oh, way back when. So since we were in elementary school, since your stepdad, I think he and his family came to to our community there in Galt, probably in the mid to late 60s, and that's where I first met him, and certainly the family. And he's been one of my very, very best friends in the whole world, and I've appreciated his friendship and times we've enjoyed together, and certainly gave a chance to he and your mom and your family, and so again, those are but I know that rarely do we get a chance to connect in this day and age just by phone and so forth, but hopefully again be able to where I have some very strong friendships, and like your stepdad's a very, very special man, and someone who's been a big part of my life for for a long, long time. So, and he and his family, and now you as part of his family as well, and so I look forward to that. Those are things that that those moments you're busy working and making your life in your own way, but we're connected in so many ways, and so I look forward to that as well. It's more time with friends and family.
Yeah. I think that's I'm finding it now. Being in my mid 30s is that
you're just a young man.
Keeping friends and maintaining healthy friendships and relationships, it's not easy. Yeah. And even with all the phones and the technology and stuff, having people one fingertip away, it's still not easy. It's still not easy to maintain, and the genuine ones, right? Not the transactional.
Oh, no, you're right.
Yeah. But although those are relationships too.
Sure, they are. But you're lifelong friends and people you've again grown up with, or spend a lot of time. And sometimes even if we were good school friends or whatever, people go off to different parts of the country or get in different pursuits and so forth. But you're right. I mean they're important. I mean because again I think that. It kind of knits together the fabric of our life, and people, sometimes are in and out of it, but if you reminisce and kind of think back, and even your age, I mean, you solid friendships and people that that if in a time of need you could call upon them, and likewise they could do the same with you, and I think those are important, and then to share in the in both the ups and the downs. I mean, the birth of children, the marriages, the relationships, and but sad ones too when you lose a family member or another close friend, a part of your network, and so I think that the support that we offer one another either intermittently or as lifelong friends is really, really important. And, I kind of started out today's conversation with about, the familial relationships, the mentoring and the, strong support that I've had throughout my life in different ways, and, and reinforcement of that, even if sometimes you didn't even know it. It was people were there watching to be sure, whether it was a teacher or a coach or, a close family member or even just a friend. And that's, again, that's a fabric of our lives. And if we appreciate that in our, good friends in return, then, well, that's invaluable. There's no doubt about it. So, again, you've got a great future ahead of you, and part of that will be the friends that, that you've, got as a part of your network.
Yep.
The important part of it.
Yep. Let's see.
Kind of covered the whole range.
Yeah,
today, so,
I think we did a good job.
Yeah, a nice conversation. I mean, again, I want to, wish you well in and certainly this endeavor, and you've got, just getting started out here, but you've got some experience certainly under your belt as well, as far as some of your involvement in community and politics and so forth, and. This is pretty cool though. We can sit here and have this conversation.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. And I thank you for I want to thank you for inviting me. It's been I've enjoyed it, and hopefully ever how this comes to pass, it will be of interest to someone. But I appreciate the kind comments and questions, and they were insightful, and it allowed me an opportunity to maybe share a little bit, and for you to share as well. So thank you, Michael. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Supervisor Nottoli, Don, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you so much, and good luck to you on this venture.
Yep, I'm excited.